No, you guys already got that. And we are live. Oh my god.
Are we live?
Yeah, we're live.
Holy shit balls. We're live. Get out of my way. I'm still eating. Sorry everyone. We're gonna start off with major apologies tonight. I know you guys have been waiting. We're so sorry. We are trying to work through some serious technical issues, you know, with Skype and YouTube and getting everything up because we want to get Mike on here. Mike's patiently waiting. His computer's updating. It decided to update right before the show, and then
happened. I hit every single red light on my way over here. I'm like, tonight is not the freaking night for this. Like, oh please.
Sam's pulling his hair out over here. We're losing our mind. Sorry guys, we're like stressing, and I'm freaking just eating pizza because I'm trying not to stress out. No one won't even touch food. Yeah. He's so stressed.
Well, yeah.
So hey, Noah Rivers is in the house again.
Caseylove.
Yeah, what up, Noah? And Mike Marino's gonna be with us too soon. We're working on it. Mike said we're computer tarded.
That's alright.
All right, so welcome to Monday Night Monster Jam, episode 27. Should have happened 2 weeks ago, but it didn't. So let me explain to you guys, you know, for those of you that didn't know what the hell happened, like there was no indication of Monday Night Monster Jam. You know, why wasn't there any indication that it wasn't happening? That pretty much is all my fault.
Oh no!
You know, because I was so freaking busy with this, that, or the other, I didn't even have time to go on my phone and try to update everybody and do the right thing, which I should have done, taken 5 seconds to do that or whatever it takes. Usually takes me 5 minutes to get anything right. I couldn't even find my live button on Facebook. Facebook, you suck. You suck so hard it's not even funny, because to find a freaking live button to do a live video took me, how long, Noah?
It was like...
I didn't even find it. He found it.
It was probably like 10
minutes.
I'd say.
10 minutes to find a live button because it's nowhere in sight on your app. So you suck, once again. I've said this before. I'm going to say it again. Facebook, you suck. Period. Put a live freaking button just as easy as Instagram has it. Okay? There's a tip. Make it easy. Holy crap, man. Anyway, all right, enough about that. So the thing is, it's my fault. I apologize. I should have told all of you guys that we weren't doing Monday Night Monster Jam and why. So obviously the first reason was me and this young man. Well, I got a phone call from Mike Marino saying, hey, I need you to paint this suit for Heidi Klum, and I won't take no for an answer. And I said, okay, shit, I better do it. So, well, it took more convincing than that. But Mike's a good talker. So he had me, no matter what. Anyway, so there was that. And that was following a class on Saturday. I did a huge class, like 15 students, or something like 14, 15 students. And then right into Sunday painting this suit for Heidi. And then with this young man helping me. And...
vampire really quick?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It's like right there.
Sorry. Here. Just, yeah. Vampires are always in the way. And they're really smelly.
Oh,
so,
now I can see you.
Great. Everyone's just looking at a vampire with meat jabbering. So,
you're good.
Anyway, I wasn't able to get everyone updated, and I apologize. It just was, you know, mind focused on the tasks at hand and not Monday Night Monster Jam. And so we didn't say anything. I didn't even tell you guys, so I'm sorry. And then, of course, Halloween rolled around, and I just kind of figured everyone knows it's Halloween. We're not doing a live show, obviously. So my apologies to all you loyal fans and newcomers or whoever is watching. You know, my fault, my bad. I'll try to be better about that stuff, letting you guys know. I think I even told Sam, like, hey, I'll let everyone know, and I never did. Artists, man, you can't trust them.
Tut.
Yeah.
Tis.
Yeah, I got, you know, a million things on my brain and don't know where to focus sometimes. So, but here we are. We're back finally live, and we're trying to bring you a bigger, epic show this time. But, you know, I had this genius idea like, oh, let's bring Noah on. Oh, let's bring Mike Marino on. Oh, let's bring on everyone. And then Sam was like, what the hell are you going to doing to me? You're trying to kill me? So it's technical because we got to get everything working, and we should have tested it. That's just, you know, we're learning. Sorry, we're amateurs.
In my defense, everything's here, everyone can see you, and everyone can hear you.
All this equipment is here.
Like brand new equipment, so the screen actually looks a little better than normal.
Yeah, and dude, we have like an arsenal of computer power that Sam brought over. I mean, it's no joke. We've got everything we need, but of course it doesn't want to work. And that's Mike texting me, coming at you. All right, cool. So Mike should be on with us very, very soon. Sam, who do we have with us tonight? If you can even take 2 seconds to look.
Sure.
Or I should probably jump on my YouTube thing, right?
Yeah.
Duh. See?
So let's see. Well, people can't really hear me that well, so I'll do this. I'll hand it off to you.
Oh,
There we go.
let me turn me down. Let me turn me off. Turn me on mute. There we go.
We're professionals, ladies and gentlemen.
Okay, I can see people. I'm going to start naming off stuff while you do your technical stuff.
All right.
We got tonight with us Aaron Blah. Is that right? Blah?
Yep, Aaron Blah.
Aaron
First
Blah.
time viewer.
Okay. Andy Neal, Scott Stevens, Holly, Brian McCruden. What up, people? What up? Jason Giaconetti, Chris Bolton, Chris Dawson, Tyler Snow, Barbarian, I love it. Barbarian. That's just his name. Andy Neal, I think it said My Mental Factory, Scratchman. Who else do we got? Neo Kazama 2, Kirk Durfee. What up, Kirk? What up, everyone? Let's see who else. Did I say Kevin Young, Ashley Bosworth, Nick Schneider, Taboo Dread, Creative Mutation, John Eubank. Huh?
Chris Bolton's got a good question right there in the chat. Just popped up.
Chris Dawson, John Eubank, My Mental. I said all those. Okay, so that's so far who I see. What do we got? 48 people or something like that?
Yep.
Cool. 48. That's a good start since we haven't been on for 2 weeks. Matt Cable, Eric Corbin, jumping in. Jesse Holloway, Griffin, Terry. I'm not vintage. I'm grumpy. What up, everybody that's jumping in? Mike, get in. Okay, so here we go. What's up? Mike says, what's up, Noah?
Hi, Mike. It's Mike Gadone. Hi.
Yeah, what up? Oh,
How are you?
Gadone, sorry. I think I said his last name wrong. So Chris Bolton has a question. Can Noah talk about his work on Cabinet of Curiosities? I don't know. I'm kind of curious, Noah. Can you talk about that?
Absolutely. I would love to.
Of course he can talk about
I
that.
would love
Jump
to.
in, Noah.
It was my first special effects, like professional special effects job, and I couldn't imagine a better one. It was just like everything I like in this world, like cemeteries, rats, like gothic period pieces. It was everything I was into. So I was in Indiana and I got a call from Norman Cabrera. Norman, yeah, he's one of my biggest influences and heroes. But I got a call from him and he's like, hey man, we're working on this Guillermo del Toro. He said it was Lovecraft. He's like, we're working on this Lovecraft thing. And yeah, like, do you want to come out and work on it? And so
you're like, no.
So he was like, how soon can you be out there? And I'm like, I'll be out there Monday. He called on a Saturday. So realistically, I wasn't able to be there on Monday, but I got there as soon as I can.
And you drove?
Yeah, me and my dad, we dropped everything, and my dad and mom, they both helped me tremendously move out here. This was August 2021. And working on Cabinet of Curiosities was one of the like coolest, greatest experiences. Yeah, it was me and Norman. I was on the body, Norman was on the head. And Norman just like, he was so gracious in letting me do so much on it. And I feel very, very,
yes,
very
you guys
grateful
worked
for that.
on The Rat.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what else? The Rat?
The Rat, and then I had a very, very small part in the one for the viewing. That one was primarily Paul Komoda and Aki. They did the body on that. They did the hands. Did like a lot of really beautiful work for that. I only had a very small part. I did like one of the tentacles. It has these tentacles, and in the show they replaced them with CG.
Yeah.
But so Paul sculpted one of them, and then I sculpted the other, and it was like the inner tentacle. But yeah, that was all Paul, all Aki on that one. But on the rat, it was cool because me and Norman took it from start to finish, from building the armature to then painting it. So that was really, really rewarding, and I feel incredibly attached to this giant rat.
Yeah.
It's my baby. I feel, yeah.
Dude, it's crazy to think about because Noah, since he's arrived in LA, he has been working non-stop for a year.
Yeah.
Straight.
Over
a
yeah,
year
it's
straight.
I can't believe it, honestly.
And not just effects jobs, but then side gig effects and stuff like that too. So it's been pretty awesome, right?
Yeah. I'm just waiting for it to stop. I'm happy with everything.
It's not going to stop.
I'm
the
good.
train is
I'm
rolling,
good
dude.
with the cool stuff stopping because I'm happy with the amount of cool stuff I've worked on. It's real.
Mike is with us. All right, we're going to
Hi.
put our headphones on. Yo. Can you hear us?
What up, dudes?
You should be able to hear you guys.
Up? What's up? All right, here's my question. Can they see Mike?
Yes, they should be able to see him now.
Okay. Great.
It's really, Casey, we're blurred like in this weird dimension, just like your head and shoulder in the background is blurred.
What's this?
I can barely see it.
What is this thing?
Interesting.
Mike, welcome, buddy. How are you?
What's up, dudes?
Hi.
Not much, man. We're trying to get this show going, and of course, it's been a little challenging. I think I put Sam to the test here, figuring it all out. So I'm stoked you're able to join us, man. I know you're super busy. I know you got a lot always going on with your company, but it's awesome to have you on the show. And I just thought it'd be a cool time since all the craziness and then coming off of the craziness of Heidi and the suit and everything. Maybe we could get together with Noah here, obviously, chat about some stuff, kind of fill people in because there seems to be a lot of questions out there about this process. And you're the man that makes it happen, dude. You're the one that puts the dream team together and all that. So.
Yeah, man. Well, I'm a fan of your show. I'm a geek. I'm a monster geek.
Right.
So I'm honored to be on the show. But yeah, man, that Heidi thing was pretty crazy. I didn't really know that it was really going to happen. Basically, Heidi called. We usually do her costume every year, and it's always some kind of crazy thing. But a lot of the time, it's a makeup. You know, it's more of a makeup, and this was more of like a pretty crazy 80s, hardcore monster suit. Yeah. But in a strange way, I really, Heidi has a very fun personality, and I didn't want to really hide that in absolute mayhem. So even though it's absolute mayhem, I think she kind of pops through, and that's kind of why I didn't want to make her teeth all crazy and all that. I wanted her eyes to be crazy, and I kind of outlined her wormy eye with some dark color, and her teeth are pretty much white. I thought it would be funnier if her teeth were popping out of that weird thing. And I'm just really happy that I got a bunch of friends and amazing artists together to work on one project. You know how that is. It's like you have a wish list of who you wish you could get to work on this job with you, and a lot of the time, oh, this one's traveling, this one's busy, it's like shit. Now I don't have that crew that I want, but this it just all came together. I had you and Noah painting over there, and I had Paul Komoda, my buddy for 25 years. I had Bill Bryan, who is an amazing fabricator that I always loved his work, and I never got a chance to work with him until now. He was available, and we totally just came up with a plan. Jerry Constantine, a buddy of mine for another like 25 years, like all just really great effects people. You know, Jerry Constantine's amazing. He's like kind of like MacGyver type comedian, you know, amazing artist. You know, he's really killing it on ZBrush stuff too. But he's just like a tech. He knows how to do everything.
Yeah, he did.
You know,
this,
so
he did this worm printout.
Yeah.
That I partially painted.
Yeah, so he sculpted that worm in ZBrush, and based on, you know, what we had talked about, and you know how the lines should go, and you know, looking at Paul's sketches, and just really killed it. And it was a great thing, and we wanted to get it to you to just try out some colors, just to do like a test mode maquette style, you know, like the Stan Winston, Rick Baker way, which we never really get to do, rarely get to do, is do like a maquette mini model, and then you know, really based the large scale design on that. And these days with schedule and stuff, a lot of times, like, you know, you never get a chance to do that. So I've actually been able to, I developed a way to sculpt so fast, you know, appliances and stuff, that like, because I know the time is always like, oh, we have a month. Oh, okay. No, it's never that. It's like, sculpt something as fast as possible, as good as you can, and learn to develop that into a realistic way, cut out a lot of steps, you know, with technical stuff. And I kind of came up with a real strange way of sculpting, you know, mostly with my hands, with not many tools, to be honest. And when I get to that point where I can't sculpt any further, I use tools, you know, or I'm so rapidly sculpting something that it's just all happening. I can't describe how it's happening, you know, it just develops, you know. So for this project, it was just fabricating was the way to go. Sculpting this out of clay and molding it and casting it and dealing with shrinkage and in foam latex and having to go back in and cutting things out. I said, this is a huge mistake. Let's try to fabricate this out of foam, which Bill had fabricated with upholstery foam. And inside of that were rings of plastic holding it together, spandex lining the inside of the suit so it would kind of move and bounce and all this stuff. It was really genius stuff. And the face, I had him level out the foam so flat around the face so that her face would kind of sit within it and level and not bulge out. You know, so that was a challenge as well.
Yeah, I actually saved a chunk that Bill cut off of the suit. And
awesome.
You kind of see the foam build up and the fabricate, you know, there was also a foam latex layer on top of his foam. And I mean, I don't have, this obviously doesn't have the inner structures of what the worm had to hold it together, but this is the foam nonetheless, which he cut, you know, just chopped off right in front of my eyes. I remember just going like, remember that foot piece needed to fit, and he's just cutting away. I mean, he came over here, and it was like a mad scientist, man. Like, you know, first of all, I was sort of in awe of who's in my garage studio, you know, at the moment, right? And then and then on top of it, because I haven't worked with him either until now, you know, and then on top of it, he's just like chopping parts away and just making shit work and stuff, you know. And it was just like amazing to see under pressure as Jerry's packing part of the worm up into this crate, Bill's like frantically, you know, without any, what seemed like stressless, you know, he's cracking jokes and whatnot, just making this whole thing come together where, you know, where that the foot was, or her feet were, and all that.
Yeah, you know, I mean, he's a veteran, you know, he was the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. He built that thing,
yeah.
You know, boss film, old school stuff. You know, I love working with Bill. He's like, you know, I think a lot of like artists, you know, why they are a certain way and why they experiment and why they do strange things. And, you know, it's like the beauty of an artist, you know, it's letting that artist do some of that and kind of harnessing in with, you know, kind of like a silent leash, you know, like, hey, no, don't do that. But I think this is cool. Maybe you should do this, or what do you think about this? And, you know, like offering to let them make the decision, but kind of guiding it. You know, it's almost like being a composer, you know, you kind of direct all these creative people. You know, I mean, look, if it was me and you, Casey, we could have done all of this ourselves in a certain way. If it was, you know, Jerry and Bill doing something together without any other help, it would be similar, done in a certain way. But I think it's kind of like me being kind of a director towards all of you guys, understanding what everybody's kind of specialty is. It really was, let's see how far we can experiment until we get to the point where that isn't going to work anymore. And here's the drop dead date of this. Here's the drop dead date of this. So it's really coordinating all that stuff, coordinating and harnessing in artists to not let them go completely, ballistic, until you run out of no time. So I needed time because I made an executive decision, instead of using like a plastic bag, which Bill Bryan usually does a lot of that stuff. I didn't like how it was crinkling in a certain way over that foam. So I kind of made an executive decision I experimented with Jerry in the middle of the night. It's like 2 a.m. I'm like, let's whip up a batch of foam latex. I haven't fucking done this in like 20 years, because I've been doing silicone stuff for so long. I said, let me whip up a batch of foam latex, and we whipped this foam, and it was probably like the first batch that me and Jerry ever made that worked. And I was like, oh shit, this is so good. I remember this feeling, ripping up this foam, and it rose really. I whipped it up. I always remember Dick Smith telling me how to do it, and I had such trouble with it. I think it was meant to be that I had trouble with foam latex because it drove me to go into translucent materials, gelatin and silicone, so hard. That it was a blessing in disguise that I couldn't get my foam to work really well. But mixing it up, it brought back so many memories of like growing up as a kid in like the 90s and stuff, trying to make that stuff work. But we whipped up a batch and we spread it on the upholstery foam and we screwed around with texturing it and stuff. And I said, okay, this is totally going to work. It bonds, it doesn't come off. It's flexible still. The lightweight thing that Bill was doing with the upholstery foam, it doesn't mess it up.
Yeah, it's genius. I mean, this little cross section I have, you can see the layer. And what's amazing is you guys layered it on so perfectly. I mean, look at that.
Yeah.
It's not like fat in one area and thin. It's like really perfectly layered on there. I know you can't see because the camera's blurry, but it's all good.
I
remember
it's tricky.
Yeah, I remember you sending me a test too of what you were going to do, because we were talking about. I was thinking, after we talked, what paint am I going to use for this? We were talking. I was trying to stay away from chemical stuff, obviously, and just not wanting to go back to chemicals. But then at the end of the day, it was like how you went back to foam. It was like, okay, I'm going back to rubber cement, because it's the best stuff. Know it works,
It works, it stretches, it moves so well, it doesn't crack off, it's just sometimes you just got to kind of bite the bullet and occasionally do that stuff,
I didn't get a chance to tell you, and I think, Noah, you knew about this. So sealing this sucker, man, my wife and I stayed up till 3 a.m. the night so I had a movie I had promised to take my daughter to go see, right, that night. So I couldn't, I had to do the dad thing for a minute, right, for 2 hours, but I'm stressing, right? I'm like, I got to seal this suit, and I know it's going to take a while, and it's got to dry. So, I go to the movies, and we jam back home, and my wife is so awesome to wait up, to help me see. She knows we got to seal this thing, and she's waiting up for me, so amazing, such an amazing person, and so giving. But she's sitting on the couch. I come in, all right, you ready to go? She's like, yeah, let's rock this out. Let's do this. And so because I had put all that acrylic on, over the rubber cement, I was I was battering my brain forever. Like, how am I going to seal this? I can't. And remember on the Heidi thing with the what was it? The Michael Jackson, all that paint coming off, which we'll talk about later. That worried me, right? So I was like, I'm not putting Mike through this. I know Mike does not have time to screw around with repainting this thing, right? Right? So I'm stressing out, I cannot let this dude down, So I get home and I had strategized, okay, over top of this foam, wherever there is any acrylic at all, I'm sealing it with Prozade and then rubber cement, because I know they're going to stick together, and then we can do the silicone glossy stuff, So, but then as I'm driving home, I'm realizing, wait a minute, I sprayed the whole fucking suit with acrylic, a light layer of this bluish, interference. So I'm like, we have to seal the whole thing in Pros-Aid just to be sure. So, so I get home, we dump out some Pros-Aid. I tell my wife, grab a big ass chip brush, start brushing it on, just make sure there's no drips. So we're brushing this on for like an hour on the suit, right? We finish up with that.
What a sweetheart over there.
We then go to the rubber cement layer, right? Then we go into the silicone layer, and like 3 hours later we're done, right? And it stinks like silicone caulking. We're high as a kite. We got the garage open, but dude, yeah, it was like it was nuts, man.
Thank you, buddy.
Oh no, it was absolutely nuts. But I was just stoked how well it worked, And actually, thanks to Manny, man, because he gave us the tip on that silicone.
Yeah, man, that stuff rocks. I mean, you had something there that looked cool too, but Manny was like, "Oh, you could use this." Manny Leaners, you could do this thing. You should use this thing. I see a lot of silicone stuff with this. It'll work on rubber. It's tin. So I said, okay, if it's tin, it'll work on foam latex. If it was platinum, no chance. That stuff would take forever to cure. It would not set up, especially if it's thin. So this was RTV rubber, 3430 it was, the Silpack stuff. Right. Really good, stinky as hell. It's basically like watery caulking that dries like high gloss. Yeah. So that was like a really good thing because on the day it was already shiny, and all we had to do is just mix up a shit ton of methacellulose and just slather the thing down to just douse the whole thing. Total 80s style, it was like Twilight Zone, it was total the thing. Yeah. It was so lubed up like crazy. And the funny thing is that ultimately it just looked like, I don't know, it reminded me of like a Muppet, like a giant demented Muppet on acid or something. It's just like, it screams like a Paul Komoda thing that he would do anyway. And that's why I was like, I've known Paul Komoda, who was a friend of mine for like, I don't even know, almost 30 years, 25, 30 years. I used to work when I was a kid, like right out of high school at this toy company he was at. And we just became friends all the way back, in the 90s. Yeah. So we always have worked together before he moved to LA and all that. So he would work in my studio sculpting things, and I would, I would have him do some sketches for me, etc. And I was like, okay, a worm, this is Paul. Oh yeah. I'm like, this is totally Paul. This is like Paul's dream, obsession, parasitic type of worm thing. Okay, he's got to be involved. And the interesting thing with sketches, especially with like, doing designs, I really don't like hyper finished drawings. I don't like them. I like almost thumbnail style drawings. I like just a quick sketch, some gestural thing, where the design is not so overly like beyond overly designed, because I like to kind of leave room for interpretation of the actual thing. Right. So even when I'm doing a makeup or something, I never really do a design. I like to sculpt the makeup, what I'm doing on the life cast, and I sculpt hair and I do a little clothing thing on it as a rough on the makeup, because I feel that the idea, the life, the energy, all is within that piece. And if you are working on something over and over, like a design, and then when you finally get to build a thing, you're bored and you're like, this sucks, I don't want to do this anymore. Right. So it's like, imagine sculpting a miniature thing and then a little bit bigger and then a little bit bigger, and it's like by the time you get to the full scale thing, you're like, oh, it's so overly controlled, it's so overly like micromanaged at every moment that it's boring and it kind of sucks. It's like, it's like old music, like 70s rock. I've heard that. That shit is amazing, because it was like what's recorded on those records are like mistakes. Oh, right. And they're like kind of weird things, and you kind of remember the cool mistake. But like all the music now, I can't say all the music, but a lot of the music now, it's overly produced, it's overly perfect, it's metered, Pro Tools, all these things. Like there's not even really drums there sometimes, it's like, but those beautiful mistakes, I think Joe Walsh had said this from the Eagles. He said the mistakes are the things you remember, and it's the spontaneous human magic that brings that thing to life. Now, if you recorded 1 million demos and you milked it, then you didn't explore it when you really recorded it at that time, and it didn't become great, So I like the roughness of something to a point, get the idea, and then jam on the real thing, like painting on the real thing. That's why I liked that you tried to experiment with the paint a bit and didn't paint the whole thing. It's better that way. You develop and you figure shit out, even though sometimes it's a little crazy schedule-wise. It's done better, and I feel like it looks better when it's happening at the moment.
Yeah, it's funny because I didn't get a chance to touch this maquette worm until an hour before you got here with the suit. Yeah. I mean, you'd shipped this to me a couple days prior, which was awesome. But I had a class, and I had I had all this crap going on, and then an hour before you got here, I slammed a bunch of paint on this. Just looking at the worms you sent me, and I'm like, okay, let me try to figure this out, and then later we'll worry about how we attack the suit, So it was like, okay, once I got that far, I knew I had solved something, that resembled a brown worm, and I was like, okay, and it also had the glow you were talking about, so I was like, okay, I think I've got something good enough to show Mike, and we can talk about it further. And that's what we did. You showed up here, there it was, and then it was like, okay, let's do it. I remember Noah and I too, when we started looking at the real estate of this thing, because it's, if you were to measure that thing, I mean, what was it, 8 feet or something?
Yeah, it's a little over 8 feet.
So there was a ton of real estate to cover, and I remember doing this so fast, thinking like, okay, this was fast and easy. I did this in less than an hour, but when you get to a giant suit, how do you go so fast? And I remember at one point, after we had based it, and then we did all the bright colors first, which it was funny, because I remember thinking how Steve Wang attacked the Predator, and he told me, he said, I did this creamy white, and then I did this bright orange, and then Matt Rose kind of freaked out, like, whoa, what is that, all that orange, and then Steve's like, hold on, just wait till I layer in and get it, and it was kind of the same thing I told Noah, like, we're going to Predator this thing, like, creamy white, cool, bright color, and then we'll come in with the darks. But I remember we got to, we're about to do this kind of purpley brown, and we were going to airbrush it, right? And I remember thinking, we don't have time to airbrush every layer all the way down an 8-foot worm. So I told Noah, let's get some chip brushes and let's start slamming that color on quick. Boom, 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 boom. So we just mixed up the rubber cement, slammed that color across, and then went back and cleaned it up with airbrushes. Because had we sat there with airbrushes, we would have never finished, So it was just one of those old school tricks of how to get something done under a rush. But then at the end of the day, me, Mike, too, it's like the quality of the paint has to be right. I can't settle for crappy paint jobs, it has to be.
Oh, no way.
I've seen too many crappy paint jobs, and this being, who it's for, was that stress started to hit me on day 2, oh my.
Well, you guys killed it. You guys killed it.
So
how did you feel when I showed up and stayed 8 hours?
Great. That was
kind of I think I drove you to the limit of human awakeness.
Yeah, you pulled a Rob Bottin on us.
Definitely did, and that's how he was.
Yeah, it was you see, exactly, you came at 6:00 and you left at 4 a.m. I think, right? And dude, that was a 20-hour day for us. No one.
I knew I had to come.
I
ate all your organic candy. I told crazy stories, but I came to really make sure that you guys were good, to be honest. I wanted to make sure that you guys weren't freaking out, losing your mind. I wanted to keep, you inspired a bit and scared too.
It worked.
You succeeded. Yes.
You succeeded.
And that little Noah, what a talented boy he is.
Noah's awesome.
I'm very glad, Noah, you did such a great job. I'm very proud
Thank
of
you.
you. You killed it, and you killed it.
Thank you for having me on.
We were just talking. Yeah, no, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was just gonna
cut
say
you
this was
off.
great. This was I have such a good memory of working on this with you.
Yeah.
And you showing up. And
Mike was right. We're famous for a worm.
Yeah, I told you. I told you, you guys would paint all this stuff. You'll paint better things in shops. You'll paint, things that are sculpted like crazy detail and all that stuff. But you'll be known for this because so many photographers, and it'll be around for a while. It's like memes. It's nonstop memes. It's all over Instagram. It's all over the internet. So and it's not in dark light. It's crazy flash, paparazzi flash, so everything's on display, every area, every corner,
Did you see that Facebook thing I posted that Noah was tagged on, and then he called me, or we were talking, I maybe called you.
Yeah.
Noah's like, did you see this Facebook post? And it was like 8,000 views and like 200 remarks. And Noah's like, you got to read some of these remarks.
They're just making up.
People were just making stories up about us painting on it and what it took or what happened. So there's one guy was saying like, oh, they must have painted in shifts and they did this and they did that. And I'm like reading these comments and they're hilarious, man. I mean, people were just like
they're arguing with each other.
Yeah, they were just and they were getting in arguments with each other about it and
it's crazy.
Madness, man.
It's crazy. Well, I mean, that's the thing. And, I was lucky to have like some, foam patcher extraordinaires, Bree Ford and Yuri Ramos and Allison Kellerman. Great, amazing foam latex, seamers, patchers. And I was there with them, probably annoying the shit out of them, and saying, oh, no, move this line. No, make fill this in a little bit more and do this and this. And it was like, they really came through, and they were coming like after work.
After an 8-hour day. Yeah.
And after work already. And I'm just kind of like, hey, let's get some beer, and let's stay longer,
Yeah.
And the George Lucas trick, get pizza and beer and everyone's happy, But no, really though. I mean, they were great artists. They really kind of did this beautiful pattern on it as fast as they could. I'm sure they're like, oh God, no, but like we all jammed, it worked. I knew what it had to be. I knew what it'd be covered with, glazes and slimy stuff, and could get away with certain things here and there, but it worked, man. I mean, it totally worked. Nothing ever comes out to the expectation of 100%. That's what I learned over these years. You have the psych vision in your head and you go, okay, I'm going to try my best to try to leave that in my head abstractly and leave that in your head abstractly. And you're kind of like honing in on it as you're working on it. And hopefully you achieve something like that idea, but it's never really like maybe your imagination or what you really want it to be. But you try your best for it. And even with the face, I mean, I had like 2 hours to sculpt that face.
I remember. You banged it. I remember you telling me you're going to start it. And then I remember an hour or two later, I get a text from you of the face. And I remember blowing it up on my phone and sticking it in front of the broken Heidi face, which is my fault. we'll explain that later. But I hold it up so I could get a visual, and then Noah just goes, dude, that's creepy, man. That thing's actually creepy.
That's awesome. No, I love the face.
Yeah, it was rad, man.
It's really funny, it's like I had like the nose of it here, it's like this like night breed, stretched, stretched thing,
awesome. Yeah.
But it was funny. I mean, like, could I have sculpted that like to this like crazy elephant textural perfection? Yeah, but not.
It wouldn't have matched up anyway,
it's got to get done. It's got to get, I just wanted to put some of this curvy, organic shape in there around the mouth and stretch it a little and make it funny a little and cute.
Yeah.
You know, it's definitely like cute looking in this weird, creepy way.
It worked. It worked.
You know, so it's kind of like years of fucking around and being confident enough to try stuff, you know, and that was what I learned from working with Rob Bottin, you know, and that was like, you know, how do you experiment with something that you're making and try things out until you kind of run out of time, you know, and keep pushing to the point of experimenting. You know, he would come in, I remember sculpting something and it would be like days of sculpting, doing little details and things. And then he would come in one day and bring in he brought in this like weird life cast of this little hand and had these buckles around the knuckles. And he goes, let's try this. And it's just like, all right, cool. You know, I didn't say, oh man, I spent all this time. I was young and I just was like, all right, cool, let's try it. And I just totally wrecked what I was doing and then just tried this thing, worked on it for a couple of hours. And then he came back in the room and was like, oh, that's cool. You know, maybe I like it the other way. Let's bring it back the other way. You know, so I was like, all right, cool. And I just totally wrecked it. And he liked that about me being there because I was not like, oh, fuck, come on, man. I just worked on this. I was like, fuck it. Let's just fuck around. Let's totally fuck around. Like, how many times am I going to be sculpting with and next to Rob Bottin? I'm just going to do what he wants. Yeah. I was like, I'm just going to see if I learn something. And I learned so much from him just from brief conversations coming in the room. And he was like totally torturing me in that room. He left me in this one room. He totally was testing me. You know, he goes, I want you to listen to some music really, really loud. I was like, okay. So I put on Slayer. I put on fucking like Rain and Blood, you know, so loud, beyond loud, like shaking the building. And he comes in, I put it on, I'm sculpting just like normal. And he comes in, he just shakes his head. He's like, this is crazy. Like, oh my God. And I think I was like, oh no, this is like normal.
Yeah.
It's totally normal.
Yeah. Definitely so normal for Norman, myself, and you. I know that. Yeah, we listen to that shit all the time.
Yeah, man. I mean, you know, it's like I learned over the years to work in absolute extreme distraction.
Yeah.
Because I own my company. I have employees, I have people, I have phone calls, I have business stuff going on. I'm constantly interrupted. Constantly. And that was one of the things Bottin would complain about, was that he, you know, can only work on stuff at night because he's always answering questions all day.
Right.
And I just answer the questions, but work at the same time. So I'm like having conversations, sculpting, like totally like I don't even care. You know, I'm so distracted for 20 something years that I just work almost better when someone's in the room with me. I had to sculpt something crazy, something for the weekend. I forget what it was, something difficult. And I had Crystal, who works for me, and I think Richard Redlifson was there. And I was like, guys, come in the room and just hang out with me. I'll sculpt faster. You know, so they're drinking beers, hanging out, and I was just sculpting, and I was just wailing on it, you know. And it just, at this point, this makes me move faster, you know. So
it's just a distraction, but you're focused. It's a strange
space in your head. I feel like having that abstraction distraction being there doesn't make you go down a path of too tight too early.
Yeah, I can't work in silence. I don't get that with artists. I think I heard even Chet Czar saying the same thing. Like, I always have movies or music or something has to be on. I cannot come in my studio. I have two pet peeves. One, my studio can't be messy. I can't work in clutter. I can't stand cluttery stuff everywhere. That drives me. I can't focus. And then I can't have silence. Silence just makes my mind go places I don't want it to go. You know what I mean? And so I need like something on that puts me in a good mood and whatever it is. And I have this weird thing on. I didn't get to it today because it was raining here in California, which is rare. But I have this weird little like I always
Yeah.
watch.
Yeah.
I always watch Big Trouble in Little China on rainy
that.
days. You know, I turn that on in my shop and I just start jamming. It's just like a weird little thing I have, but yeah, I need that. Yeah, and I know what you're talking about because it's a distraction, yet it causes you to focus actually, which is interesting. You know.
Yeah, or it's like some kind of comfort thing.
Or comfort, yeah.
I don't know. It's just kind of like, I mean, I don't know how many times Total Recall has been on over and over and over again while working. You know, I mean, it's like total like 100 times. You know, like over and over again. It's just like I love that movie. I don't ever get bored of it. That RoboCop, you know, like I could keep watching that stuff over and over again.
I have that with songs too. There's like if I'm really digging a song, it'll just be on repeat till I'm driving people crazy, you know.
Yeah, you know, I think a lot, you know, working on stuff like sculpting and all this stuff, I feel like I had to really break my mind and learn to stay loose longer till the point of like uncomfortableness, you know, like, you know, I remember being younger and really I came from not knowing how to sculpt. I never like was taught. I never went to a school. So I kind of like always thought each area, you know, stupid, you know, like had to be finished. So like every little area would like finish clean before like I moved on, you know? So I like worked in this like extremely tight fashion. And then as I started working more, I had to like really break that down, you know, and go like, I don't want to finish anything, nothing, until everything is at the same level, same point of finish. And then I can move around and not get stuck somewhere, you know? So I really had to like rewire my brain, you know, like an OCD kind of thing, you know, where I feel like that developed into being distracted. But at the same time, Casey, I mean, you should try it. Work with nothing again. Work with silence again. Now. Try it again. Because sometimes I'm sculpting and I'm like in total silence and I don't realize that it's silent. I'm thinking of like stuff, you know, and I'm like, oh shit, I never put anything on and I'm done. You know, it rewired my brain anyway.
So
I think
you are enjoying working that way?
Yeah, I think it's better. You know, I actually think it's better because, you know, look, I'm my own person. Everybody has their own way of working. I'm attracted to more things that are less hyper clean at this point. Right. Hyper finished. You know, I love like leaving things kind of messy and then texturing over it and neatening it up during, you know, in a textural thing. Yeah. And seeing where that goes, because if you study classical art, you study like Rodin, if you study some old school sculptors, a lot of their work is so much better than what anyone's doing now. You know, it's like rough from a distance and like, holy shit, you get closer and it's rough, really rough, you know? What is that? You know, why does that look better? You know, to me anyway. And I think it's speed, you know, I think it's confidence and speed and being able and having in that artist's head so much they had to do that they didn't get stuck in this little corner of an eye, you know, and they really kind of
there's an interesting thing to that where you probably know this too, Noah, I'm sure. It's where you reach a point in your sculpture where you're still rough and you know that the next step normally is to refine all that. But you know that when you do that, you're going to lose all this gestural noise that made it cool. Yeah. And so I've done that before, what you're talking about. I've done it on half mask where I just didn't give a shit. It's just a Halloween mask. I don't care if it's not perfect. And I'll stop at that stage and then just detail it and just go into to whatever, like don't refine it.
Right.
And funny enough, sometimes those masks have a far more organic, impactful look to them, than the refined stuff does.
Yeah.
Right. It's like Frank Frazetta. It's like comparing like Frank Frazetta to like Boris Vallejo. Right. It's like one person is so clean and beautiful, almost like better of a painter, but then you look at Frazetta and it's like so rough and powerful. It's better, it's like, it's better technically, like Boris style or finish or technique or something. But like, if you really zoom in on Frazetta stuff, it's so rough, like blobs of stuff. But a foot or two away, it's like, wow, that is so powerful of force, of a gesture of, it's what Sargent, the painter, and Sorolla, those painters had, it was like, at one point they were painting like from a distance with long brushes, and you can see the motion in the turn of the brush, and it's like, man, that's so much better. You could have never planned that. And plotted it out.
Yeah, the artistic language of Frazetta is insane if you really study it. It's gesture. It's very gestural in a way that's just like amazing. Dude, let's we have some. Hey, Sam, do we have some of those images of Mike's work that we can pull up? Let's pull up some stuff because, man, let's show some people. I know, I'm assuming everyone knows who Mike is and his company, but maybe they don't. So let's show some stuff, and Mike can talk about it too.
Sure, give me just a second. I'll set that up.
Noah, you're too quiet.
Casey,
Start talking
Casey.
with us.
Also, do we have some of Paul Komoda's sketches too?
Oh yeah.
If not, I can send them so we can share.
Sure, yeah.
Share that too.
I'll start loading them.
Do you have Sam's?
No.
Okay.
I can send them to you though.
Here, send them to me and I'll send them over to Sam. We'll do a pass along.
Let's see. So right now.
And Paul Komoda, one thing if people don't know his work, is I describe Paul Komoda.
John Travolta.
Oh, there you go.
I don't know if you guys can see that at all.
Yeah, it's
Probably really small.
one part's over to the left of our screen and one's up top, or
Right.
is that right? Okay.
So what they're looking at right now is it looks like John Travolta.
Yeah, so I mean Mike sorry, Mike, you're talking about Paul.
Oh yeah, no, I was saying that Paul Komoda is like Leonardo da Vinci, but if he took acid.
Yeah, exactly.
He's amazing.
Paul is absolutely amazing. I remember working on the thing with Paul. I was doing a bunch of maquettes, and Paul was working on a bunch of sketches. And I mean, I remember just randomly weird conversations with Paul where he would just start talking about how his dad frightened him into what was it? Something about
It was like parasites right?
and stuff, and worms and all kinds. So like, it's funny when you said earlier, like, Paul, this is definitely Paul's alley, this worm. It's like, yeah, you can't. There is nobody else that would come to mind as soon as it's a worm or some gross thing that moves that way. I mean, Paul has just got such a knack for it.
He's the best.
He's got such a knack for it, man. Even on the thing when
total master.
Yeah, when we worked on the thing together, it was like, holy shit, that was like, what was that?
I just sent several.
Anyway, he was just banging out amazing freaking designs, man. So you sent it to me. All right, so let me send this. Hang on one sec. And while we're doing this, if you want to talk, Mike, about this John Travolta makeup.
Sure. It's hard for me to see. It's a little blurry on my end, but hopefully everybody can see. So yeah, that was a makeup for a really like kind of bad movie about John Gotti. But we can't really choose who the directors are and how the movie's going to come out. You try your best on whatever you're working on. So this was a makeup I had done on John Travolta where he had to be really dying of cancer, but he also on his chin has this like strange skin graft. on his face where they took a piece of his chest and put it on his chin. So, but the real John Gotti, when he was older, he had that kind of scar, specific scar. So I just sculpted in it's Chavant, and I took a life cast of John and I sculpted eye bags and then some folds that fit into where his were, and kind of his chin, twisted it and kind of made a strange shape there. And me and Mike Fontaine had done the makeup on the day on set. I think it was in like Cincinnati or something, and that scene actually was the scene that one of the distributors was like, okay, because of that scene, I'm going to finance the movie, even though he kind of lost his money on that movie because it was kind of a strange movie. But you always try your best on whatever it is. It could be some crappy low budget thing, and if you put your mindset to being a crappy low budget thing, then the work is going to be crappy and low budget. So always, my advice to anybody who's doing anything on the low budget stuff, just absolutely kill it beyond. Like what would Rick Baker do? Botine or something. They worked for no budget and they still killed it. So. Right. I always look at that mentality, like just do the absolute best you can, and if the movie sucks, people will say everything in that movie sucked except the makeup effects,
Yeah.
And then you win, So
yeah, I know. It's funny how we, in the effects world, even if it's, some crappy movie or something, we're always striving for some greatness in our work, because, I've even had bosses tell me like, "Oh, don't worry, nobody's ever going to see this." And it's like, "Oh, it's the biggest bunch of BS there is." Like, right, I know people are going to see this, and I got to make sure it's good. But
well, that's what I told you. That's what I told you on the Heidi. I said, "Hey, it's a Halloween costume, but everyone in the world will see it." So
that was no stress at all, man. No stress at all.
And like look. Looking at it again, I always want to look at that thing and break down oh, I would change this. This didn't work. I can move this. I could change this. Where this edge is, I could line this up better. It's just it's kind of like jamming on stage.
I mean, live. I would, looking back already, I would approach the paint even differently. But at the same time, when you're under that time frame and it is what it is, it's like, okay, I mean,
but then you'd never get that Slayer album.
Exactly. Yeah.
You'd never get that one because they would have overthought it and went back and fixed it,
right?
And it would have been overdone or too polished or something, So it's kind of like it's got to live fucked up
in that moment. Yeah. We definitely had work cut out for us.
Yeah.
Right, Noah?
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
I think we played a good game.
So what else do we got of yours? Let's see. What else we got, Sam?
I have a picture of Penguin pulled up.
Oh, penguins. Yeah. Now that's got to be one of your most well-known to date right now, right? Just because of the how.
Yeah, I think so.
It just came out not long ago. It's the new Batman. That makeup.
Yeah, so that's Colin.
Yeah,
Farrell.
and that's insane, man. Because that makeup, I remember. Typically when I go to the movies and watch something, and I didn't pay attention too much to this Batman because I wanted to be surprised when I saw it. I didn't want to go in with expectations or knowing too much about it. But I swear to God, dude, it was throughout the whole movie. I never realized it was him. That's how good that makeup was. It's like I didn't even realize. And my wife and I at the end was like, we saw Colin's name and we're like, where the fuck was Colin Farrell in this movie? He wasn't in this movie. And I'm like, no, who was it? And and then you see Penguin, right? And we're like, what? No way. And then I had to find out, who did it. And of course your name, pops up, or your company name. Right? And I'm like,
cool, man.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, it was hard. It was one of those lucky things, to do that movie. It was filming in London, and usually they don't hire outside of London. It's hard for them to hire outside of London. But Matt Reeves had, I guess my name kept popping up, and Matt had known my stuff, and Matt wanted me almost like to a point of insisting that I do the job, which was very flattering. And then I worked with Colin Farrell like 12 years before on something, and I was very friendly with him, and he was just a great guy, very passionate guy, very serious about his work, almost like we are, you know, like we laugh and we goof around, but like we are serious, you know, like with what we're doing, you know. And he's that way. He really is that way. He'll do anything to make the project good, you know. So I had life casted Colin in LA, and I sat. It was like just after Christmas time. I was alone in my shop. It was like New Year's time. It was like totally empty. I was like, all right, I fucking think. So I just sculpted. So Matt Reeves wanted to do. He wanted to do something where he was a little bit heavier, and one of his influences was John Cazale from The Godfather, Fredo from Godfather. So I was like, well, Colin really knows nothing, looks nothing like him at all. He's stockier. John Cazale is super skinny. I was like, all right, let me look. And I started looking, and I had sculpted like a John Cazale, Fredo kind of nose, a little bit like Italian style nose, just, you know, and I was like, stupid, you know, it didn't look good, you know. So I just said, fuck it, I'm just gonna do what I want. And I just made this fat pockmarked holes in his face. I was like, okay, I want to be imaginative a little, and I knew the tone of the film was so real, like Detective 7, you know, like total like detective story. So I couldn't like do like a bird person, you know, or some kind of crazy, you know, beak that was this big, right, you know, and some freaky thing, you know, no, you know, Brian Froud or Alan Lee crazy goblin thing, you know, or something, you know, I couldn't do that, you know. So I was like, okay, how do I make a bird person look real, you know? So I said, well, he's kind of coming up of a gangster. He's kind of like insecure. I said, let me like put some things in his face that maybe would drive him to be insecure. Maybe he's got really bad skin. Maybe he's a little bit overweight or something. Maybe he's, you know, it's psychological stuff. And then I started looking at, you know, I was looking at penguins. I was looking at beaks and parrots and penguins. And I found this really cool penguin where his eyebrows were like this, you know. So Colin's eyebrows are like this, you know, they're like this innocent kind of friendly guy eyebrows, very distinct. So I said, I gotta totally wipe those out. So I mimicked the shape of the penguin's brow with his eyebrow shape, and I had made them black and white, subtle white in there. So there's some white in there. So it's kind of like a two-tone thing. And then his nose, I was like, it's got to look beakish, you know, like a beak. So I found like an eagle and a penguin that had these fucked up beaks that were like chipped and twisted and like bent, you know. So I turned from the side of the silhouette and I sculpted technically a beak, a chipped up beak that looked chipped and like just scratched and stuff. So I left it super rough. And I had sculpted a beak on his nose from profile, and I was like, okay, so if one side of his face is like fucked up, I put like one eye that was heavier. I put one scar going across his face, and his nose, like as if it was lip, nose, and like face got scarred, you know, like a bird. You know, you see a damaged fighting bird, you know, like an eagle or something, you know, where they're like, you know, battling. Right. You know, you look at lions and shit, and they have like, they're fucked up. You know, they have scars and eyes that are fucked up. So I was like, he's a brutal animal, this guy. You know, he wants to be the pack leader, you know, so he's got to look like a grizzled, you know, gangster, you know. So I just totally did kind of all these psychological things: bad skin, overweight, scars, bird beaks, bird eyebrows. I thinned his hair out. I was like, My brother is always like, oh man, my fucking hair is, my hair is fucking thinning. Fuck this. It's like totally like fuck this confidence up, So I was like, he's got to have that too. I was like, Colin has a full head of hair. He's 46. He's got a full head of hair. Fuck that. He's got to go bald. He's got to be thinning hair. Everything I could think of that could like fuck you up, like image wise, I tried to do, So
that's awesome, man. It worked.
So I did it, and Matt Reeves called me right after and he was like, okay, what is this am I looking at? And I was like, no, I sent him sculpture pictures. And he goes, who is this, a person you're looking at? Who is this? I go, no, that's Colin. He's like, that's Colin. That's him in the makeup. He's like, what? That's Colin. That's Colin. He just kept repeating it. Like, that's Colin? Yeah. What the fuck? Yeah. That's Colin? You can do this? You can do this? And I was like, okay, now's my chance to just be like, okay, yeah. And I was totally ballsy, and I was like, yeah, we could totally do that. It'll look totally real. It'll look totally real in person, and no one will know it's him, and he'll look crazy. And he's like, if you can do that, I'm totally in. I'm in. So they sent the pictures to Colin. He flipped out over it, loved it. And Warner Brothers and DC approved it like right away, one shot, bam, like, there you go. We're good. We're good with that.
Damn.
So I was like, holy shit, awesome. And what I had shown them was my rough sculpture. I'd sculpted hair. I sculpted a little bow tie, a little collar. But that was the makeup. It wasn't like a design that I made a makeup out of. That was it. So I ripped the bow tie off. I ripped the hair off, and then I like floated it off and put it on a mold. Since Mike Fontaine had textured it, and that was it. And we just like went with that, and it's a huge risk.
Yeah. Dude, it worked, man. It worked like a charm because I had no idea that was Colin Farrell.
Well, I tried to put something cool in it, like of Botini, Rick Bakery, kind of Dick Smith, pseudo, value to a villain, like not just like a scar,
Yeah. Hey, have you, not to get off subject, have you seen these Cabinet of Curiosities?
Well, we watched one of them in your shop.
Oh, that's right. Oh, my God. You're right.
We watched one that Arnaud did.
The rat thing. Did you see that?
Yeah, man, that was awesome.
Yeah.
I loved it. That was fucking rad.
Yeah, they did some cool old-time effects stuff, man,
Guillermo. Yeah. Guillermo was a makeup effects protege of Dick Smith's, just like me.
Yeah, absolutely. I know. And he loves he
loves
loves puppets and rubber creatures and shit. Thank God.
They shot it with so much respect and shot it so beautifully. They didn't cover it all with CG.
Yeah.
There's only I think one shot where it's running that they do CG on it.
Yeah. So they didn't thing it like they did on our stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so cool. I think that's what directors I wish they all were like that, I've worked with the full gamut of directors from Martin Scorsese, Darren Aronofsky, and, people that you don't know how they became a director. They're talking about like, like some weird off-topic subject in the middle of a scene, so it's amazing to see somebody like Guillermo be a successful director because it's a painter. It's a director. It's directing a bunch of artists in every department in an artistic way with his brush, and a lot of directors aren't that. And why we have a lot of crappy movies. So I'm psyched Guillermo is a director.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, speaking of painting and brushes, I know Sam is popping up some of these Paul Komodo designs, which are awesome.
Nice.
Which
Yeah.
Paul is a guy we'll have to get in here at some point as
absolutely.
well.
And Mike showed us these. I think we're like halfway through painting
for
work, and Mike comes over and he's like, "Hey, you guys want to see?
You
guys want to see what it could like, what Paul's designs are?" And
what I tried to do, what I tried to convince Heidi to. I was like, okay, go nuts, make it crazy, and he did these really cool things, and Heidi was like, no, I just want a worm. Oh, okay.
It's
dude. I was like, when I saw some of these drawings,
we had to tell you to stop. It was like, it's making us mad.
Like, stop torturing us with this awesome art.
So
I know. It's like total like. Imagine building that. I would have loved to have sculpted that or made that, but It's still, what we did was cool. You know, I think it was really cool. I think, like I said before, I mean, you get to a point where there's a fantasy of what you think it could be, and then you get a percentage of that, you know, and it's the way it is, you know.
I mean, especially with that. I mean, all of these, just so people know, I mean, and tell me if I'm wrong about this, Mike, but all these Heidi costumes are like that. It's like, what, a few months of work at most, right? I mean, to get this stuff. I mean, the conceptualization of it all, I'm sure you're talking with her for a year or two or whatever it is, or right? Or a year at least, or something.
But yeah, I mean, I think that I kept delaying having the conversation because I was like, man, those things burn me out. I'm like, I don't know if I want to do it again, you know, like,
right.
It's always a burnout. I mean, in 2019, me and Jerry Constantine were literally fucking lathing aluminum shoes the night before, like, to go with her costume. You know, it was like no sleep, absolute death. And then, oh, we're filming you now live in a window in a store in New York City.
Oh, was that the Frankenstein chick one? Yeah, I remember that.
It was like, I tried to go down this like futuristic, weird Bride of Frankenstein way, and she kept calling it an alien, and I'm like, it's not really an alien, it's more of like a Bride of Frankenstein thing, weird thing. You know, I was like, it's an alien. It's like, I just had two different kind of like thoughts, you know, that's crossing, you know, but it was still fun and cool, but it was so much work that I was shying away from having the conversation with Heidi about doing this party because I was like, man, I'm going to kill myself doing this.
Yeah.
But luckily, the way it was built, I tried to really think of like how much preparation can we do beforehand. And I think the approach of going about this costume being more of like a suit, zipping her into it as opposed to putting glue all over her and painting it on the fly was just like a huge mistake. So it was a blessing because there was a huge mistake in the past because it's like, okay, it's an 8-hour makeup we're doing. And me and, you know, Mike Fontaine are airbrushing the fucking thing on the day live, you know, like from scratch.
Yeah, that's insane.
You know, it's like if you started that worm blank on the day.
That's insane, man.
You know? So I didn't want to do that. So the way it was done, and that's why I'm so glad that you guys were involved because we had, even though it was a fast turnaround and a little bit of a rush, it was done beforehand where you didn't have to do it in a 6 to 8 hour window and you had a couple days. Yeah. You know,
which you need for something like that. I mean, honestly, to do it in a day, not knowing where you're going, that's insanity right there. And live, you know, in front of
pressure and no sleep.
In front of downtown New York.
and being on TV and doing interviews and totally burned out, you know. So I was like, there's no way. So I was so glad that it was this way because it opened the door now for like much more elaborate, weirder things, you know. And I think Heidi is kind of really enthusiastic about doing really crazy 80s style big creature things. So you know, hopefully we do a lot more like that.
Hey, let's we're gonna break off for a sec and take some questions because there's a lot of people asking questions in here. So, and for you guys listening in and all this, I know this is not much of a monster jam, but we're jamming with words instead of doing actually something tonight. So, but let's take some questions. If you have questions for Mike or Noah, you know, about anything they've worked on, let's hear them. And I think, Sam, do you want to go back in the chat and see if there's any main questions that stick out? I don't want to ignore people.
Sure. There was actually one from Carolina Kiwi Creations that just popped up. They were wondering who did the Joker makeup for the last Batman film. Is that the one that barely got seen? Is that one that Mike also did, or did Mike?
Yep. Yeah, I had done that. That was kind of a crazy thing because we had. Matt Reeves wanted to do, it was a big secret. It was called The Unnamed Prisoner, but it really was the Joker. It was the beginnings of the Joker being the Joker. So and ultimately he cut a bunch of that out of the movie, but then posted, I think it was on Twitter or YouTube or something, and posted a video of the scene that they cut out, because I think that in his mind it was like going down a different path, and it was giving an answer to a question that previously had been answered. So I don't, those are the reasons of his reasons, not my reasons. But the reference really was the Elephant Man. He really loved the Elephant Man. I love the Elephant Man. I think we talked about the Elephant Man movie for like an hour before we even talked about anything with this character. So, that was the first movie I ever saw, was the Elephant Man. I was like 4 years old and I watched the Elephant Man, which is like the craziest, creepiest, scariest, beautiful movie. One of the most beautiful movies ever made, like art movie, and just one of David Lynch's best films. Produced by Mel Brooks, by the way. But it's such an amazing makeup, and that makeup is like always different every time you see it. There's like shit different places, I think as Chris Tucker was like always trying to figure out how to do it, how to cast it out and like change it and fix it and all that. But it's just such a cool makeup. And that disease is called neurofibromatosis.
Yeah, it's gnarly.
It's a crazy disease, a lot of really great reference. And it was sort of like that as a reference. It also had like a flesh-eating disease, or some kind of like flesh-eating disease where this character was kind of like embracing what affliction he had and making it worse. So like the guy's like, like fucking chewing his own face off kind of thing. So it was like he has this crazy disease and he's making it worse on his own and creating this persona that we don't know exists yet. So I think there's probably room for that at some point. But yeah, I had done that. I was in London. I had done a Photoshop, quick thing on my phone, and then I had sculpted a smiling version of what I thought it should be on a scan we took of Barry Keoghan, a smiling scan. And I had sculpted this like weird thing, looking at The Man Who Laughs, looking at Jim Lee, Joker, looking at some very specific drawings. His hair was pompadoured, sort of. Yeah. If you see some of it, you see it's like he's ripped his own hair out. It's like there's wounds on his head. He's like done this to himself. So all of that kind of, coming together. And Mike Fontaine had helped me sculpt some of these additions that we had tested it, and Matt had thought it should be even more extreme. So I had Mike add little bits and pieces based on a Photoshop I had done. And then I did the makeup with Crystal Gerardo, assistant artist of mine, works in my studio, and Joran Lundstrom. But I had pre-painted everything myself. I had, did all the hair coloring myself. I sprayed this color and I wiped through it, and we made the wigs, all of it. And it was shot in like crazy shadow, it was only supposed to be a blur, shot in a blur. Right. But then ultimately there's only this very small piece of it in the movie. But I think it opens a crack in a door that, maybe we can go down later. But yeah, we did that.
Awesome.
Unfortunately, we didn't see much of it, but hopefully maybe soon.
Yeah, I think seems like that's the direction it'll go in. Noah, actually,
Yes.
Where's that thing you had with you?
Oh, it's rough. It's unpainted.
Bring.
What are you guys working?
Bring it up. Check out this.
It
I can't
looks
see.
like trash.
Oh, you can't
It
see.
looks like
Shit.
trash. Because I stripped all the paint off of it.
But bring it up.
So
Bring this thing up, man. This thing
I
is so
stripped
rad,
all
dude.
of the paint off of it.
This thing is like this. God, this is heavy.
Yeah.
This is all
It's all encapsulated silicone.
encapsulated
Yeah.
silicone. He's got this like mushy. I don't know what you would call it, man. Like mushy.
It looks rough right now. No, I
Can you even see
stripped
this
the
thing?
paint off because I hated
hard to
the
see.
paint. The
Dude,
paint
I'm
I did on it.
gonna send you a photo, Mike. This thing is rad. It's like this mushy ass monster thing.
I could barely see it. It keeps fading in and out.
Let me send it to you like this. Here, I'm gonna take a picture.
Casey, is that something you sculpted or Noah did?
Sculpted this. It's freaking
Cool.
awesome.
I'm gonna paint it.
Here, I sent you a text.
I hated the paint I was doing on it, so that's why it looks so.
Leave it.
So,
Work
so
into
rough.
it.
Yeah.
Oh, that's sick.
Isn't that rad?
That's
It
awesome.
has all these eyes that are underneath the skin, right? And it has
I
a
love
flesh
it.
mouth.
That's cool,
Yeah,
man.
so I'm gonna
No, you gotta leave all that crap,
Yeah.
leave all that shit in the
Yeah.
cracks, and just like paint over it. You know, leave it as like a rub
Right.
out.
Yeah. So,
Oh, that's cool.
Noah, what else? Let's see. So you worked on cabinet, and you worked on the two series and that. What else did you do after that?
I don't know if I can.
Or you can't talk about stuff. Is it still too early?
I think so. Yeah.
I guess you.
Yeah, don't do it.
No,
Don't do it.
No. I don't want him to talk about anything. I thought there was more stuff you worked on.
It was the municipal
came out.
waste thing I
Oh,
did
yeah.
before.
So, If
but-
you guys don't know this, Noah is like a little rock star. he's in this municipal waste video. The band. What's the song?
Electrified Brain.
Electrified Brain. Noah did a bunch of effects with Norman Cabrera that Norman directed, and Noah stars in that music video. So you should check out the municipal waste video on YouTube because Noah's in it. And funny enough, there's like an old 2008 Phantom of the Opera bust I did that somehow ended up in his room.
Yeah.
What was essentially Noah's, well, not Noah, but the character's bedroom, like this metal kid that makes monsters,
Cool.
you know. Norman, wanted to have Noah play this part of this metal kid that makes
It wasn't a
monsters and
stretch.
loves
Yeah.
monsters. No, it's like totally
Right.
just
Just
play
play
yourself.
yourself. Yeah.
Be yourself.
Mike should be able to see it now.
Oh, you got that fixed?
That's another thing. I worked with Norman
Is that fixed?
when I was a kid.
Can you see us now, Mike?
At Optic Nerve. I can see you guys
oh my
now.
God, finally. At
Wow,
the
finally
end,
worked.
we get it to work.
Oh, it's great.
Holy shit.
I worked with Norman Cabrera when I was a kid. I worked with him at Optic Nerve. I always loved his stuff. I remember seeing his work for the first time. I think it was like in Cinefantastique or something. I think when he was working at XFX making like corpses and shit.
Dude,
and I was like,
it's
Norman was fucking awesome. I always loved his work.
Oh
you know?
my God,
He's-
yeah, dude.
he's one of the best.
He's one of the best for sure. You know what's funny? Optic Nerve. When I was 18, I used to go to this tattoo shop called Optic Overdrive, and then when I started hearing about this shop, Optic Nerve, because I knew a few people that worked there. I always kept calling it Optic Overdrive. Everyone I'd run in, hey, you remember that? You know that effect shop, Optic Over? And because I was always having the tattoo shop in my brain, so I was always screwing up the name. But yeah, that shop produced some amazing stuff. I mean, John Wheaton came out of that shop too. That guy's insane. That guy's a madman. Like
amazing stuff, dude, like amazing drawings, and then he'd be like sculpting like some of the main makeups inside, and it was like, shit, man, I can't do that. I was still like, John Vulich liked my stuff, and I was young. I came in there and showed my portfolio, and he was like, when can you start? And I'm like, you mean like working? Fuck, okay, tomorrow. He's like, all right, come in tomorrow. I was like, oh my God, I never did this other than being in my bedroom,
Yeah, you're like
so nerve-wracking, and like totally probably fucked so much shit up, by just like inexperience and, but I think it was kind of like trial by fire, man, it was like thrown into the most chaotic shop.
Yeah.
That was like, we were doing like 3 shifts of people. It was like 9 to 5 and 5 to whatever. And then it was like continuous shifts because it was like Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Angel, all these shows going on at once. And like there were so many people in and out of that shop that it just didn't like ever really shut down,
24/7.
So it's like, yeah, it was like consecutive stuff going on,
It's like
In
7-Eleven of makeup effects.
Yeah, it was crazy. I mean, but the quality of the work was so good.
Yeah.
And, John Vulich, my experience with John Vulich was who owned Optic Nerve. And he owned it with Everett Burrell. And then Everett Burrell went to do like computer stuff, like animation and things like that. But John was left with Babylon 5 and all that stuff, and but he would come over, man. He would smoke a cigarette, and he would just like come over and like fuck everybody's sculpture up, like, but in a good way. Like he would improve it. He'd be like, use his fingers, and he'd be like that, and just like this. And oh yeah, and he'd come over to mine. He'd come to, Norman could probably tell you. I'm sure Norman's always looked good, but like he'd come pretty much to everybody's and just kind of smear it around and be like, oh fuck that, this looks way better, But and that's kind of like my first kind of experience with like a supervisor or somebody coming in there, just making it better, just with his hands, and I was like, that's cool. And the strange thing is that that's how Botine, my experience with Botine was that way. And it wasn't like, I'm not going to come and touch your stuff. It was like, he came in and was just like fucked with it with me, and that's how I thought everybody worked, so I kind of modeled myself over that. But Optic Nerve is like the bomb place because they did super fast turnaround sculptures, creatures. We sculpted this fucking like 20-foot long fucking tail on this creature. I don't even remember. But it was like, oh my God, this was like 4 days and the whole thing is sculpted, It was like massive fast turnaround and good quality work. It's just, that was a really influential studio. If you don't know, maybe you could, people out there can look up Optic Nerve, like in the early 90s, late 90s. I mean, some of that stuff's badass, that was being made.
They were doing all kinds of cool shit, man. I mean, if people want to see some of that too, the old makeup magazines have a lot of coverage of it too. I remember there would always be coverage, or Fangorias and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, some of it might be weird looking now, but some of it is awesome too. It's like ballsy. No one was doing that kind of stuff on that speed, on that scale.
Was Kerry Gamble working there? Wasn't he working there drawing?
I think he was at XFX or EFX or whatever. Not EFX. What did he change it to? Edge FX. It was XFX, Edge FX. I think he was over there. Not sure if he was there. I remember just John Wheaton, really, just drawing stuff there.
John was amazing. He's still amazing. He's awesome. Hey, Noah, we had a question earlier for you. Can Noah talk about his work on Cabinet of Curiosities? Is there any stories you want to share about your work with Norman and on Cabinet? Anything that comes to mind?
I'm trying to think. I mean, it was just all a lot of fun, just working on this giant rat.
Yeah.
It was just from start to finish, just fun. It was great.
And then you got another question. Do we get to see any progress of that shock mask? Eventually, man. Right?
Probably. It's dried out. It's dried out in my garage, but I can revive it. I can revive it. I mean, the thing is when we shot that episode, Casey, it was like the day before I left for Atlanta.
That's right.
It was like I was leaving for Atlanta, and then I was there for, I don't even remember how long, like 2 months.
You were there until Mike brought you back for the Heidi gig.
Exactly.
Which we should thank.
We forced him to fly, thanks to Joel.
Thanks to Joel Harlow for.
Thanks to Joel for lending me this young man.
Letting us borrow Noah for this Heidi thing. Let's see. When can we get a Paul Komodo show? Yeah, we will definitely try. I'll talk to Paul. I know Paul. He's a good friend. We'll have to see when we can get
now
him.
That we know we have the technology to do it.
Yeah, this is our first time doing this, Mike. You're the first that we've done this artist thing like this, and
cool.
Yeah, I think Sam just about lost his mind there for a minute, but he pulled through.
No excuses. I should have been better.
Let's see. Okay, so we got another question for you, Mike. Does Mike leave those spontaneous mistakes for day of application, or is that too risky?
No, I think what I'm talking about more is the design process and sculpture part of it. I think as far as paint job goes, I think that's a little bit more ironed out on the day, on the actor. But I think like the mistakes are happening in the conception and the design and the sculpture phase more so. Where like Casey was talking about, where you leave something rough to a point where from a distance it looks right, those little blobs of things and smears and shit like that. Like, not too tooled. I don't like, for me, I don't really like go and refine with tools. I really use like my fingers almost primarily, unless I like think if something's way too big, then I'm like raking something down and like shaving it. But like, I work in like small smeary pieces and add stuff and build it up and push it around in a way. Almost like maybe like a matte painter or something, like I just get it on there and then just move it, and, I think for me, I feel like it's faster. It looks more organic for what I'm doing. I mean, I think that a lot of the things that I've done fall into a little bit more of like a realistic situation. I'll do like old age makeups and stuff like that, technically I'm like pretty bored doing, but it's more needed in movies than, from Crazy Fly or something, or The Thing, which all we want to do is weird shit. But it's like, hey, we have this aging makeup, oh God. All right, fine. You try your best to make it look real, and my whole thing is like, how fast can I get this done and have it not overthought? So I think the mistakes and the bumps and the little holes and things that appear, you have to look from a distance and then kind of foresee that once you put texture on this, that will disappear to a certain level. So that I don't like to clean my surface of my forms too well and then texture it. I used to do that, and I can tell the separation of texture and form, but they all are together. There is no separation. So I leave something to a rough point, and I'm working textures in at those moments all simultaneously. There's not a separated level of texture point, because I hated doing that.
Yeah.
But I leave something to a rough point, texture into it, and fuck with it continuously until it looks right, So sometimes that texture cleans your surface of your form.
Right. I know what you mean.
So you don't have to rake it and smooth it and clean it and then texture it, because you lose a lot of that vitality and that dynamism that's inside the form, If you look at Bernini, or you look at old sculptors, like Houdon and all the sculptors that were like the best portrait sculptors, you go to the museum and you're like, man, it looks fucking real. There's no texture on it at all, but it looks like it is. It's just from a distance, it's done in this very specific rough way. There's no separation from texture and form, it's less processed thinking wise.
Oh, there's a lot of people are caught up in that like real level of skin detail with all these. Now you see marketed $20 printed pour tools, which I can't stand actually. I hate seeing these $20 a tool this big that costs $20 that was printed or something.
Right.
Like, god damn, dude, like I could just make my own thing, that does the same thing. I mean, really, guys like Mitch Devane came up with a lot of this stuff, and
yep.
I don't know. Now there's roll-on tools and
I think they're
cool,
cool. They may work for certain people. I think they're also like experiments. There's not really a way to do anything. I could show you exactly the stuff I texture with, okay? This is a needle, which is a beading needle that's ground down a little bit. A needle. This is a thumbtack, ground down a little bit. I don't know if you can see that.
Yeah.
That's it. Shitty ass, dirty Kemper tool.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I made this tool. Well, I had someone make it for me after I went to go see a Bernini exhibit, and you could see the tool marks in his sculptures. So I reverse engineered his, which probably was like fingernail marks, which is this curved wooden thing. This end has like, it's kind of worn down. I have a bunch of these, but there's like little striations in here a little bit.
Use one of those.
That is an awesome tool.
Yeah.
To just lightweight, just kind of move around, like fuck with stuff. And this is a Mitch Devane thing. He gave me this, but it's just a brush for a dog.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, dog brush. Yep.
Okay.
Cat brush.
Dog
Yep.
just totally fucked up. Literally put this all over the thing. Put some powder on it. Use different plastics. It's crunchy floral plastic. Ziploc bag. Just kind of poke around, flow what you're doing. Powder it. Use a cat brush over it. And it flows into like natural stuff. There's different areas and things like that. But if you don't have a rough sculpture under it, and it's too clean, it's just going to look very mechanical.
Right. That's
Like a toy.
Yeah.
Yeah, a little bit like, it's a little bit like, looks like, I can only compare it to like overproduced music.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, it's a very fine line we're balancing on, like form that's too rough or too clean, and texture that's too rough or too clean. It's like finding this crossover where it's it feels right. I think intuition is so important onto what you're working on.
Yeah, it's like Ride the Lightning versus the Black Album.
Yeah. Well, clearly for me, there's only one answer, really. It's Ride the Lightning.
Exactly.
It's no way, man.
Right.
But look, that's exactly what it's like. It's over juiced.
Yeah. Which is not bad. I mean, it's interesting. There's room for all of it. It's just it's a stylistic preference. But I mean, at the end, it's just whatever works and gets across the right.
Yeah, how do you want to arrive?
The right look, or however you want to say it. We got another question for you. I was just reading really quick because I'm trying to answer some of these awesome folks that have been hanging with us here. Andy Neal, how many fittings did Heidi do before you guys got everything right, or did you just go straight from measurements?
Well, it was one fitting, and we usually never do any.
Wow.
So we did one fitting primarily because I wanted her to see it in a rough form, just in case she was like, oh my God, this is all wrong. And then we still had time to like make it bigger or make it smaller, change it. But I think that she was so enthusiastic at looking at it in a rough state, and I wanted to see if she could kind of move in it a bit before we did any foam latex, before we painted it, all that. So we had one fitting. It was about a half hour. She put it on, wiggled around all over the room. We cracked up, we're like, okay, she's happy enough. She was very happy. And, I convinced her like, hey, it's going to be way more detailed. It's going to be painted. It's going to be blah, blah, blah. So she was pumped. She was just psyched. So I think that kind of like solidified like, okay, we're going down the right path. And it moves funny and it's working. So I think,
Yeah.
If she wasn't happy, I mean, we probably would have had to have another fitting or start thinking of redesign. But, she's psyched. She's cool. She's the coolest. She's all about like creativity and, letting you exploiting what we do.
Yeah. Right. That's awesome.
So, it's like perfect. It's what you want like in a producer. It's what you want in an actor. And it's a lot of the time, like what we do is uncomfortable. Gluing all this crap on your face and like pulling your eyeball and doing all this weird stuff. Tying your arm behind your back or something weird. And it's always uncomfortable for the actor. But she was like, fuck, I don't want arms. I want my arms inside. I want to feel trapped.
Like
I was like, okay, cool. Fucking cool.
Dude, yeah. My only worry, I remember my only worry, and this is because I knocked over in my driveway on night number 1. We had Micah and Jerry had separated the worm into two major parts, her upper body and her lower body. Her upper body was just on this board with some 2x4s holding her legs in place, and there was I thought what was a fiberglass face or some kind of really strong understructure was actually a print of her face. I didn't know that, and we're in the dark in my driveway. And I think it was right after we had the phone call of you were saying, hey, screw that thing down, man. Don't let it And I'm like, yeah, whatever. We just got to go. I don't have time to mess with anything. And I knock Heidi over, and I had my airbrush in my hand. I had no time to grab it. It falls flat on its face in my driveway. People are walking by in the dark, like, what the hell are these idiots doing? And I'm picking up this worm, and Noah looks at me and he goes, "You killed Heidi Klum, man." And I look, and the face is just smashed, and I'm like, "Oh my God, it's a print!" And
yeah, we had 3D
it's
print.
like 2 hours after the delivery.
Dude, 2 hours after you deliver, I smashed Heidi's face. And the thing was, it started crumbling over the days, worse and worse. I just started pulling more chunks out. But
you're reaching into the hole.
Yeah. It's like all wrong. But where was I going?
Well, luckily we didn't really need.
No, luckily everything worked out as well. So I got 2 more questions for you guys here. Let's see. One for you, Noah, from Mike. This one's for Noah. Did he sculpt a face for the municipal waste video, or was it cast?
The glow head, I'm assuming?
I think they're talking about your likeness.
The glow head. That was from the likeness head I sculpted of myself from like the Halloween 2020 Halloween, and so I just used that mold. My mom actually, like Norman when I showed him the head, he's like, "Wait, I thought that was Photoshop, man. You sculpted that?" I'm like, "Yeah, why would I post a Photoshopped photo?" And he's like, "Oh, cool, man." He's like, "Can you send it out?" I'm like, "Yeah." So the same day I'm on the phone with my mom, and she's shipping out, like, thank you, Mom. They're shipping out this ultracal mold. So that was run out of that sculpt I did. And just like in layers, translucent layers with veining in between, and then a really opaque brain and skull.
Yeah,
and that's how we did it.
That was awesome, man. That was awesome. Yeah, Noah did a bunch of work on that video actually too. He did a number of different things. What else did you do? There was some other stuff.
Those Sentinels, it's kind of, they kind of look like Peter Cushing. They have cracks on them. I sculpted that, and then Norman put the cracks in, and then the melty face girl, and then the melting head. I did the skull and the puppet for the melt head.
Yeah. Oh, I just remembered. That's where I was going with the Heidi thing, her face. I remember after I dropped it, I remember thinking, remember I telling you, Noah, like, she better not fall over face first in the suit, man, because she has no arms to, like, put out in front of her. I kept thinking, like, oh my God, what if this really happens, man?
Well, she did fall over, but it was deliberate.
Oh,
So great.
Right, yeah.
I love those interviews with her.
That was
on
awesome,
the ground.
the interview on the ground, yeah.
Yeah, I got a photo of that.
That was classic.
That was insane. That was awesome. E.T. Interviewing her on the ground. So, Mike, there's another question for you. How many batches of foam latex did it take to coat that worm suit? Also, did you have an oven big enough, or did you have to improvise?
Very interesting question. Good question. Okay, so Bree Ford, Allison Kellerman, Yuri Ramos had done the foam stuff as I tortured them daily, changing patterns of lines and scales. And then I figured out a way, me and Jerry had figured out a way to use like a string to like tighten the foam patching so it would be this crisp line in all these areas, and then the surface would bulge a bit, and then they would go in with like wood tools and like sculpt more detail throughout it. But it was like total experimental stuff, and I think it was Tim Phoenix who ran the foam latex, and I believe it was like maybe 5 gallons of foam base or something like that, maybe a little more. But it was like whipped up, and it was like delivered batches, and they would just add gelling agent to it and then do those section at a time. And I think that took like 3 or 4 days to do. So it probably added maybe 15 pounds to the whole thing. So I don't know what foam latex wise is. I mean, that's not really that heavy when you're doing something that big. So it was fairly thin. It was thicker in certain areas that I wanted to change the pattern to, and like kind of build up, because some of the foam was like crooked, you know, so it would be like crooked section and then bigger here. So it was like, you know, the girls were like chopping pieces off and trying to build up with foam, and some of it was thicker in certain areas, but it was fairly even. I don't know. It was probably like 5 or 6 gallons of, you know, foam,
Yeah.
something like that. And then what else? What was the other part two of that question?
Did you make, or let's see, it was
Oh,
the
oven.
Yeah.
Oh man, so me and Jerry had made an oven that was 4 foot by 8 foot tall. A huge oven. We just went to Home Depot and got like air conditioning, like aluminum, like insulation, which is like silver on one side and like foam on the outside, and we just basically, and furring strip and hot glue and fucking screws, and we built this gigantic box in his shop. And we got a bunch of heat guns and floor heaters and a thermometer and shoved them through the foam and blasted it from below up. And the thermometer, and we got up to be like 200 degrees, and we rolled the fucking thing in there and prayed that it worked. So in 3 hours, about 3.5 hours in that oven, it was cured.
Wow.
You know, so we were like, holy shit, it finally worked. It took like 30 years to get this fucking thing to work. It finally worked.
That's amazing, man.
So,
That's amazing.
So yeah, so we built the oven, and you can do it. And if you know, there's stuff out there. If you're doing small stuff like heads and things, you could totally get like a food warmer. Like they warm up like in like schools, you know, they have like pizza warmers, not an oven. Right. It only goes to be like 200 degrees or something, 220 at the backs. So you could get a food warmer. You don't need an oven. Get a food warmer, stick it in there and take it out, you know, ventilate, because it stinks.
Yeah.
So yeah, we built that thing.
That's crazy, man. Holy shit. That's nuts. That's old school.
Well, that's innovative desperation.
You got to do it.
You know, you're desperate to go like, fuck, how do we find someone with an 8-foot oven? You don't.
Dude,
it doesn't really exist.
I've done for Monsterpalooza when I'm running late, you know, and I need masks to dry that night. I have taken giant cardboard boxes, taped them to the ground, and cut holes and put a hair dryer, and just because the mold's too big to go in my home oven, it works. Any heat can get in there. But we had another question here for you, Mike. Would Mike think about doing a workshop class in the future? And I know you've done one before.
Yeah, I've done a few actually. I've done a few classes, and Mike Fontaine and I had kind of hosted at my studio in New York. But I would love to do that. Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's finding the time, really. I mean, it's I hosted 2 years consecutively of classes, which I think I probably had like 40 or 50 students, maybe more, from all over the world come and learn. And my whole thing was like, I know that Face Off was around at that point and stuff, and as cool as that is, it's really like, it's very hard to really develop a skill. You might learn some things, but you also have like behind the scenes people that are helping when, you know, they go home. There's people running foam, and there's stuff that you don't see. And I was like, I don't want to do any of that. I want to like really hone in on something that these people can learn from the beginning to the end and have it be like a realistic makeup. It could be anything. It could be just on your face, not something real, something with texture, something that can be cast in silicone, something that can blend in. How can you make a proper mold? How do you sculpt texture? Like all those little things that you can take to a bigger scale if you want, if you have more time. Right. You know, but if you're dealing with only like 2 weeks of like honing a craft, honing a professional appliance, making a professional appliance, you know, you have to focus on a few things. First thing would be, what we taught was like history. Who are people in our industry? Who is Rick Baker? Who's Dick Smith? Who's John Chambers? who's Bill Corso? Who's all the people that came in the past? What are the designs? Greg Canham, all that. Like, who are the designers that did this sculpture of this nose already?
Right.
You have to know what's been done before so you don't repeat it in an ignorant way. So the first thing was like history. Like, you have to know who Rob Bottin is. You just have to know who that is. And if you don't know, you're going to learn in the next
up
class.
and get out.
Yeah, exactly. A little Bottin humor. But no, exactly. It was history, and then it would go into like making a manageable appliance start to finish, molding it, casting it, painting it. So I've done that before. I haven't had classes for a few years because we've been so busy with work that it's like hard to even to live. It's like hard to catch your breath. And I feel, that's a lot of the reason why people have this like mystery about where Rob Bottin went and all that stuff. And I would do the same damn thing.
Yeah,
I mean, he did everything. He worked for 30 years, made a lot of money, and he got the fuck out because he was complaining about money and how they owed him money and all the stuff. And it was just like disrespectful, and it wasn't.
No, I think he did that.
It wasn't going in a positive direction.
He got in, he did his thing, and he bailed. And it's respect. And
he bailed.
Respectable. He wanted to go out how he wanted to go out.
Yeah, it's like a baseball player. It's like you don't want to just like get crappy
Exactly.
and get paid less.
Yeah.
And then like have everyone laugh at you when you didn't catch the ball.
Yeah.
It's like, fuck, man, leave when you won the World Series and get out. So I mean, that's where he's around. But I mean, I would do another class. It's just finding the time. I mean, hopefully I can do it soon, or a workshop or something.
Yeah, for sure. Well, there you go, guys. Keep an eye out for that, because if Mike runs one, you'll definitely want to.
Maybe we'll go to Casey's and do something.
I can only fit 10, 15 people in here, but we could do it somewhere.
Do an online thing.
Here's a question for, I think, all of us here, I guess. Let's see. Will you guys be at Mask Fest next year? I think they're coming back. I don't know. I will be at Monsterpalooza next year. I don't know. I don't have any plans yet for Mask Fest. Noah, what about you?
I'm going to do everything in my power to be at Mask Fest. I'm going to do everything I can to be there.
Mike? Do you ever go to Mask Fest?
Where is it?
It's in Indy.
No.
Indy?
Yeah, it was like 20 minutes from where I grew up.
Yeah.
So it was an easy
Cool.
drive for me.
If you like masks,
but
it's a
for
good-
you guys, it's
I love
a little,
masks.
It's a good place.
It's a little bit farther.
Yeah. Well,
I have some old masks. I have some Rick Baker masks from like
What are
1975.
they?
I have one which I thought was like a Jekyll and Hyde mask, but then Rick told me it was Dracula. It's like the sky's like this. I have a Rondo hat.
Are they the
mask.
half masks that he would sell?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. Like that flyer from the
Yeah.
flyer. That's cool.
Yep. He promised me that
Yeah?
flyer and he never
Yeah.
gave it to me. Rick,
Call
if
him
you're
out, yeah.
here. And then I have the werewolf mask. I think this was in like Star Wars. It was like this like half. It's like this. He's like total like
It's awesome.
American werewolf looking like brownish kind of mask as a werewolf. I got it on eBay like 25 years ago or something for like $500, and I just bought them.
freaking awesome.
Wow.
I don't know who
I
sold them.
want that
I don't know
goddamn
anything
troll.
about
Rick.
it.
Rick, I want that troll. I need a troll.
Yeah, I want
Yeah,
everything.
I want everything Rick did.
That's made.
Um,
Everything that's made, I want.
So here's another question. We're getting to the end of these questions. Here's another one. This is a two-parter. I think this is for you, Noah. Were there any mechanisms in the Queen Rat? That's
Yes.
for you. Yes. The answer is yes, there were mechanisms. Who did the mechanisms?
Okay, I just need to talk about this a little bit.
Okay, go for
Richard Landon. It was such a, getting to work with
Legend.
Norman Cabrera and then have Richard Landon mechanize, Richard Landon and his team. It wasn't just him, but it was such like, that's the peak. That's as cool as it's going to get, honestly. It's
legend.
I'm like, I grew up on the Predator. That's why I'm here right now, is I was obsessed with the Predator. And he mechanized, the mandibles, and so to have him now to be able to work with him on this, it was just a dream come true. Seriously.
Yeah,
So
amazing.
as far as mechanically what moved on it, the ears moved. It didn't have a blink. The eyes didn't look. I believe they put in a CG blink on it, and I thought it looked good. It had a snarl. It had a nose twitch. And then it had the tongue, and the mouth opening, and then the rest was a guy in a suit, and then the hands were extended hands, that great Richard Landon technique.
Yeah.
So they were extended. So when he closed his hands, it would close.
Awesome.
But so yeah, it was Sean Sansom in the suit performing, and it was on a wheelbarrow. It was essentially
the
American
Rick Baker Wolf.
American Werewolf
Yeah.
on a wheelbarrow in this tiny tunnel.
That's awesome.
But yeah, Richard Landon, it was just such a dream come true. That yeah.
Yeah, that's dude, that thing was killer, man.
That's awesome.
Here's a second part to the question about how many layers of paint were needed to achieve her look.
Man, I didn't. I'm not sure. I can't give you an exact amount, but I can tell you how
2
long it
coats of
took.
clear rubber cement.
Yes, that was it. The answer is 42.
42.
No,
42.
it was like I can't
Just make it
give
up.
a specific.
Well, you did do.
I'm trying to remember how long it took to paint. We had 3. The body was done in like 3 weeks, I believe, or less than that. It was really quick.
Yeah.
The whole thing was really quick. And then painting it was like a week or 2 weeks, and it wasn't just the whole body. There was a tail that I don't think you see in the film. It had hind legs, hind feet, or the normal hands, and then stunt hands for it to dig. And then there was also the crush head, so there were 2 heads. But yeah, it was a blast. It was.
Okay, here's a couple
great.
more things. So she's one gnarly beast, and well done to you and Norman. Caleb says Noah looks a little like young Rob Bottin.
Oh my god.
Oh my god! Yeah,
Put it
that's
out,
the
you
impression.
idiot.
Better
Put it out, you
some
idiot.
pizza. Get him some pizza there. Get the full Bottin
We
effect.
got pizza here. Funny enough.
Making a monster is not like ordering a pizza.
Torrin
You know
Tanner, buddy of mine, my place, Casey, very big workshop. Love to have you guys. Hey, that might be an option, Torrin. That might be an option down the road, especially if we hook up and do. You know what, Mike? One of these days, I've thought about this recently. Like, we need to get like a epic metal effects workshop where it's like you, me, Norman, Jordu, Noah, like a huge team of people, and just do this crazy effects workshop for like 100 students or some ridiculous thing, like it'd be like you remember back in the day you'd have like Metallica and these bands would play like Monsters of Rock. Dude, it'd be like man. Monsters of Rock effects workshop.
Yeah, I'm down. That sounds awesome.
It'd be awesome, man.
We should all do one sculpture and sculpt it all for 20 minutes each.
Yeah, there you go.
Pretty cool.
There you go. Something fun, man. Just whatever comes out in the clay.
Right. Listen to as much metal as possible during the whole time.
Shelly Moth. Everybody wants that troll. Yes, they do. Because, that troll, I'll tell you something. When I worked at Rick's, just before I met you, Mike, on Men in Black 3, before we went out to set, and I met you there, that troll was sitting to my left. I found it hidden under a curtain. There was a silicone copy of Rick's troll kind of falling apart, and it was under this curtain. And dude, when I opened the curtain, it was like parting the waves, like wah, like oh, it was like oh
so
my
cool.
god, the troll. So I moved it because I was like, well, that thing is gonna sit next to me all the time I'm working at Rick's. I'm just gonna have it right here to study,
inspiration.
take pictures of it. So I had it up there, and I remember Rick came by one day, and Norman and I would just nerd out on it, like at every break. 11 o'clock, Norman would come around the corner. Oh, where's that troll at, man? We'd just like take pictures, send it to Jordu, and just like nerd out over this troll. And then Rick came by one day and saw it, and he goes, oh, oh, my troll, man, it's falling apart. My 80s troll, you know, it's like, oh my God. I wanted to ask Rick so many questions, but my mind went blank right then like an idiot. You know, I was just like, but I wanted to ask him so many questions about it. But that thing,
yeah, that was like, you know, I had giant.
That's it, but that's not a good picture
of it. That's a beat up.
That's the beat up. Like if you can get the picture of him sculpting it, that's the best.
Yeah, I had blown that up in my room when I was a kid, like on like Xerox like enlargements, you know, and like that's how I really learned to sculpt, was looking at like Rick stuff and Dick Smith's and analyzing what the hell they were doing, you know, like the ear wrinkle, you know, like that thing that was like coming over the ear, you know, on the troll.
Yeah. Oh, I copied that on everything.
Yeah, and he did that similar type of thing on, you know, on those Greystoke apes and stuff, you know, and a lot of Rick's stuff is like ape influenced. A lot of those sculptures and wrinkles and textures and forms and things are a lot of like, you know, him studying apes.
Yeah, this,
you know,
this
like,
thing right here.
Yeah, that's badass.
This wrinkle over the ear. I mean,
I
mean,
everyone
lifts that from Rick. I mean, it's a classic Rick move, you know.
Yeah.
I was just looking at his new makeup that he did for his Halloween, and I love the sides of the cheeks. He's got this layered tension, but like weathered flesh that's just, and I see that and I'm just like, oh my God, I gotta try that on something, you know. It just, that looks so killer, you know.
Yeah, I mean, he's still like, you know, 70 something, he's fucking crushing it. He's still, you know, it's just like so badass.
So that
you know, it's like he's like inspiration.
That troll too, man, you know, that was the thing. Here I am on Men in Black in what, 2011, right? Is that the time we were on that? And Men in Black 3, I should rephrase that. So 2011. And here's this troll from the 80s, and I'm looking at this thing, and what you can't imagine from pictures that you can see in person, because I can see every nook and cranny Rick sculpted in this casting. It blew my mind, because I realized right then how far ahead of the game Rick was in the 80s.
Oh yeah, that's like what, 82?
Maybe 3 or 4, maybe. You know? 82.
Yeah, I think it's 82, right?
I think so. But that sculpture is so refined for its era, and not refined in the sense of like what we were talking about. It still has that. There's the level of organic, you know. I mean, it's Rick. Right, it's Rick refined. It's like his American Werewolf. I saw. Downstairs in the basement, we had to go down to Rick's basement a couple times to get some molds of things, and I saw a blue silicone positive of the wolf, so it has nothing. And dude, there's so many wrinkles and things up in the forehead that nobody ever sees because it's covered in hair, that I almost like was like, did he resculpt this, or is this is it? And I was like, oh no, that's it. And then I had to run upstairs and look at the one on display to make sure, and you could then barely just see underneath where that stuff was. And it was like, holy shit, man, you know?
I love it. I love it. You know, there's a, I don't know if Rick had it in his brain or if it was like a reference of his or something, but when I saw this painting that Frazetta had done of this like fat guy, it looked like the troll. And I was like, oh my God, I bet Rick saw this and like used it as a reference and like changed it and like made it like his cool troll. Yeah. You know, like there's this, I forget what it is. It's like this big fat dude with like a beard stubble. And it's like, if you look at it from the front, you're like, oh my God, it looks so much like the troll, you know? But that's what great artists do, is they take great artists' work and they use it as an influence, not copying it, but like using it as an influence and mixing it with something else of theirs, like an ape and something else he had in mind, you know, and it comes out like this new thing that becomes a legendary thing, you know. And it's kind of like, you know, I feel like copying someone's work sucks. We all want to be certain things. But I don't really recommend copying anybody's stuff. You know, like I more recommend using it as an influence and making your own stuff up around it. You know, like if you like Bottin and Frazetta and Soriyama or something, you know, like you make something out of those
or
influences,
try to take those things and manipulate or change them into something of your own. Like even this little trick with the fleshy thing, I try it different ways every time I do it, you know. It's what it is. At the end of the day, sometimes I'm just like, oh my God, Rick just did it right. I have to just go back to what it was. But that's a subtle little thing, you know. It's not like this whole mask is copied from a Rick thing, but
it's almost an homage.
But it's an homage.
You know? It's
but
like
those little things, I always try. Or you know, I've tried it where you double them up, or you pull them way down, or you know, you just try to expand on that idea a little bit, you know.
Yeah, I mean, Rick's looking at apes.
Yeah.
I mean, just look at an ape.
Yeah.
You know, look at what he's looking at. You know, look at his influence. Maybe you come up with a new version. You know, I mean, it's like Rick's looking at nature. Rick was looking at nature. I mean, if you look at the Greystoke sculptures, those legendary things that he did, you know, like. Those are like the best things ever. It's like almost like impossible to break down what he did. Yeah. You know, it's like so real and like ballsy and cool. It has everything in there.
Yeah, those.
You know, but he's looking at real apes and like copying it in his way. You know, and it's like, I think look at real stuff. I mean, even Bottin's stuff. I mean, Bottin had said to me, he's like he loved hyper realistic stuff, but he also loved cartoons, you know, like crazy Tex Avery and old Disney animators and stuff, and you could see it in the work. It's not like he's copying the Disney stuff. It's not like he's copying this. He's blending them together in a way and directing other artists to do that under his wing.
See, I'm a big, huge fan of the, you know what this term is, boogity monsters, man. The more boogity, the better. But in what you're saying, in fact, to your right, there's something sitting right there to me that's boogity. Those two weird characters behind you.
Where?
Right there behind you. Yeah, those are like boogity, but yet realistic. Yeah, what is that? That thing's creepy, man.
This is weird thing I made for this movie. With this guy Sebastian Stan.
Yeah, it's like that's
this mutated thing.
It's like totally realistic, but boogity in a way, because the forms are so like that cartoony, wacky, but then you've realized it. You've taken it into a more realistic, like it's a real thing. Yeah, that's awesome.
But you know, I mean, this was before it was truly textured. You know, this is my rough stuff. Yeah. You know.
But still, that's the thing. Look at how well it reads. Because from back there, on camera, it reads so well.
Cool,
you know
thanks.
I mean? Yeah, I love that.
And that's him.
Oh, yeah. Awesome.
Well, if you see it, that's the guy. It's a makeup on him.
That's amazing. So, I don't know. I'm a big fan of that stuff. You know, that's just me. But
I think, all of those influences are in the back of your head subliminally. You know, it's like, I'm such a fan of Rick Baker. I'm such a fan of Dick Smith, Rob Bottin, you know, like Steve Wayne, all those guys, you know, all the classic dudes, you know, the effects guys, you know, it's like, I know that works so well. I don't even have to look at it anymore. Yeah. You know, it's like in my DNA.
Yeah.
You know, so I think having that in your brain, training your eye is so important. So important.
Absolutely.
And to constantly learn. I mean, I just bought a crazy book on Ralph McQuarrie, you know, who designed all the stuff for Star Wars and everything. I mean, who's like a total genius designer.
Yeah.
You know, like you could see other artists' work that came after him.
Yeah.
Because they were looking at his stuff and you didn't even know it, you know? It's like, wow, he did alien design stuff too? Like, fuck, I didn't even know that. And he did matte paintings, and he did the spaceship designs. Like, there's so much that artist did, you know, that influenced so many of us today that you may not even know it. So if you don't know that guy, Ralph McQuarrie, you know, God is a legend.
Oh, yeah.
Same with Ron Cobb, who just passed away a few years ago. He was like,
amazing.
I actually knew of Ron Cobb for the first time when Rob Bottin mentioned him. Rob Bottin was like, what do you think of Ron Cobb's work? You know, I was like, I kind of know the name. He's like, you don't know Ron Cobb? You know, I was laughing and like, fuck you, dude. I was like, show me. I probably know it. I knew who it was. I knew him because he was in Conan. He was like the fucking, the Black Lotus dealer, you know, but that was a production designer, amazing production designer, amazing artist. He drew and designed the sword for Conan. He designed the world. He designed shit for the creatures, and a lot of shit for Star Wars. A lot of really cool stuff, Alien, or, you know, so many things. And it's like, that guy's work influenced so many of us in this industry, monster people, or, you know, makeup effects people that, like, you may not even know the person.
Ron Cobb? Yeah. Ron
Cobb. So Ron Cobb, Ralph McQuarrie, you know, I mean, you know, even Joe Johnston stuff is awesome, you know, like, just legendary artists, you know, for Zeta, and, you know. Yeah, man. I mean, all those artists of the 80s and 70s and shit. I mean, it's like, you got to know who those people are. You know, it's like, it's only going to fuel your brain to, like, form your eye.
Yeah, it's...
You know, you may be attracted to someone's work from 1930. You know, you may look at classical art and be like, damn, that could be a cool creature if it was a creature, you know, like the style of that, you know. So it's super important to not just look at masks and makeup. It's to look at illustrations and painters of the past and sculptors of the past. You know, there's sculptors I find in, like, if I'm in Paris or something, there's like, oh my God, that's like the coolest sculpture I've ever seen. Those veins in that hand, like, it's just like a dude like grabbing a horse's, you know, like something, you know, and it's like, that's the coolest creature ever. You know, it's like you could imagine what that would be like if it was on something else, you know. 100%. So
yeah, no, I look at everything, nature. I tell people, my students especially, like, I look at everything, man, because you just and I try to sometimes look at stuff that's not makeup effects. You know, I just look at all kinds of different stuff, man. I have books on tons of stuff, and I look in the internet, and you just never know where I can get influenced just by color combinations. You know, we have one last question we're gonna take because we got to call it a night here. I'm going to take this one because I think it's important. For new vendors at MassFest, what are some tips and advice? I'm going to give you guys one of the best tips of advice for new vendors at a show, whether it's MassFest, Monsterpalooza, or what have you. When you are a vendor, and this is old vendors do this and make this mistake, by the way. Vendors that have been doing the shows forever make this mistake constantly. Every person that comes to your table, you are to say hello, hi, how are you? How's the show going? Because that simple interaction of actually recognizing someone is at your table and saying hello to them is your first step in making a sale. And anytime you don't do that and those people walk away, you have no idea that they've probably just walked away and not only not going to buy something, but probably walked away and said, wow, they didn't even say hello to us. That is the biggest vendor mistake. Every vendor, and I see even top-notch artist names making this mistake. I just went to Sonapalooza. I'm not going to name any names, but it happened to me there. They didn't say hello, and I did not buy for that reason. I buy if I like something, but it's a major mistake. So that's the number one piece of advice I'm going to give you is, you know, not only set your table up nicely and present yourself the way you want to be presented, but say hello to everyone that walks up to your table. If you're sitting in the back of your table and you don't say hello, or you don't say hi, or you don't greet the people coming to your table, you probably just lost sales left and right. And it's just the way it is. You have to engage. That is a huge tip. And I know that tip because my wife burnt it into my brain. You didn't say hi to them, you know, you idiot. So, and they walked away. Okay, so that's it. I'll get off my soapbox with that one. That's a good tip, though. Hey, so listen, Mike Marino, the amazing guy from ProRen, Renaissance Effects, makeup legend in his own right. Thank you for joining us, hanging with us. More importantly, thank you from and I know I'm just going to say from me and Noah,
Yeah.
from Noah, thank you for hiring us on Heidi's
Seriously.
suit. That was an amazing experience. Yes, it kicked our asses, but it was absolutely amazing,
Yeah.
and it was a hell of an experience to have you here at my shop hanging with us for a while. What were you going to say, Sam?
I was gonna say I have a quick question
Come on in.
for Mike.
Oh,
Mike,
Sam's got a question for you.
Yeah, I was gonna say, can you let us know what you're up to right now, where we can actually find you online, any of your social media accounts, your website potentially? What are you up to in the future
Yeah,
now
so
that
it's both-
all of this is concluded?
Yeah, both the same. I'm at prorenfx.com, PRORENFX.com. Same website, prorenfx.com, and then prorenfx is the Instagram handle. I don't really mess around with Facebook, really. I think that's kind of enough for me. And project-wise, I just finished a TV show called Marvelous Miss Maisel. A lot of old age makeups in that TV show. We're starting Penguin TV series. There's a bunch of other stuff I can't quite talk about. Some of it might be monstrous.
There we go.
So maybe
Awesome
we'll get
stuff.
Casey and Noah on those too.
There you go.
We'll
we
see.
got some cool stuff coming from Mike and his team at ProRenFX.
And I'm glad to have you two jam, just friends. You know, I
Honored.
always liked Noah's work online. First time I saw it on Instagram, you know, I thought, man, this guy's good, whoever this is, and then I find out he's a young guy, and just like how we used to be, Casey.
Yeah.
I think we can only see him grow as an artist.
He's growing
and
fast.
Encourage him and influence him, and we can learn from him too.
Oh yeah, I already have, man. I've learned a lot from this man. He's growing quick, man. He's working on legendary stuff right off the bat, which I'm so happy for him. Noah, what about you, man? Where can everybody catch you?
I'm on Instagram, just Noah Rivers Creature Design, and I think Facebook, just Noah Rivers, and that's it. But you know, seriously, thank you for having us on this project. It was fantastic. It was amazing. Yeah. So
awesome.
I'm
Thank
forever
you.
grateful. For
welcome. Let's do it more. Do it more.
We'll do it more next year too. more
Yeah,
hijinks for Halloween.
Sure.
All right, so that'll conclude for tonight. We went a little longer because we got started so late. Sorry, everybody, about that. We had to work out all the kinks. Eventually, we got them worked out, but now we know what we're doing more. So for next time, Mike, sorry to you for all the delays and issues on
No
that.
way, man.
So.
I mean, this is early. Let's keep going.
I wish we could. I gotta cut out, but we'll do it. Tell you what, man. Let's have you back again. Let's do this again.
Yes.
Do it. Let's do it.
We'll do it.
All right, awesome. I'll give you a quick view. Take a look. I'm at my house right now.
Oh, cool.
I'll show you real quick. Show the world real quick.
There you go.
I got some cool old vintage posters behind me. See if anybody can figure out what's going on there.
God, Conan, the Fly. What else?
This might be a little washed out, but look at that one.
Empire Strikes.
Can you see what that is there?
Which?
That's an original thing English version poster there.
Oh my God.
They're lit up, so you kind of can't see it. This Empire Strikes Back to Fly, Conan.
Was that a little Marshall half stack?
That's a refrigerator.
Oh. That's awesome.
Anyway,
man.
I don't know if you can see them, but there you go. Pinball machines.
Kick ass, dude.
All right,
I love
dudes.
it.
Thank you so much. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
We appreciate it.
Listening.
We'll see you again, okay?
Peace
I'll
out.
talk to you soon. Bye, buddy. All right.
See ya.
See ya. Noah, from me and Noah, we're going to call it a night. We'll see everybody soon. Next Monday, we'll go back to our regular Monster Jam schedule with some demos and whatnot. Tonight was just kind of a hangout talk, and have Mike on the show and Noah talk about all of our worm adventures, getting wormy. But hey, we'll see you guys back on Monday with the regular show and everything, and that's about it, man. You guys know where to catch me. And we'll see you guys all very soon. Bye, everybody.
Peace.
Good night.
Bye.